It is 4:30, and I am going to call this meeting of the City of Tullahoma Planning Commission to order. As I look around, I see 4 members, 5 members present. We have a quorum. So therefore, we are ready to conduct business, and I have asked Jackie Duncan if he will lead us in the invocation and the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Will you all rise, please?
Thank you. Let us pray. Eternal Father God in heaven, we come in thanksgiving and love, realizing that if it hadn't been for love, we would have all perished long ago. And for that, we say thank you. Thank you that you once again allowed a few of these, your servants, to come together to do your will in making the needed decisions for the benefit of this great city we call home. We look around and see all the good that surrounds us, and we can't help but say thank you. We pray your blessings over all that will be said and done in this setting, that the decisions made will be made with your blessings, and that your love and mercy will continue to cover this great city. We pray your guidance, direction, and blessings over all who stand in defense of freedom and justice for this great nation, and we will always be committed to do the right thing. When it is yours to call and ours to answer, we pray that you will give us a place in your home in glory. In Jesus' name we ask it all. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I'd like now to ask the members of the commission to look over the agenda for tonight. Do we have any additions or corrections to this?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes as published.
You mean agenda? We can do the minutes too if you want, but
That was the first thing on the agenda. That was the first thing on the
I'm
agenda.
sorry. Okay, I have a motion and I have a second to accept the agenda and approve the minutes as published. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. There are none. It passes. Reports of staff and officers.
I have no report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know that this fits here. But I do think that we need to recognize the fact that one of our own has been awarded an award, and we're very proud and happy to see you receive that.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
I appreciate that.
No old business to come before us tonight? Then we will proceed to new business. First thing on the new business is a site plan for a TDOT mobile office site on 1208 East Carroll Street, shown on pages 6 through
17.
17, 12 through 17.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is here to answer any questions.
All right.
Your
name
Aaron
and
Hawkins. I'm the District Operations Supervisor for Tullahoma Maintenance, TDOT. We brought 11 by 17 drawings. We have, I think, 3 copies. If y'all want to, we can pass them around. Y'all can look at them. Should be the same ones we submitted a few weeks ago.
We are.
Unless you want a larger picture. All right,
Thank you for bringing it.
thank you much.
Oh,
Did I hear any motion from the floor on this?
Well, he was going to
Oh,
go
I'm,
over the project just a little bit.
oh, I'm sorry, okay.
I guess the whole purpose of the trailer is for two small offices. We've been without a district engineer for several years and also an operations supervisor. We've currently filled those two positions, and that we need two more places right now. These guys are two places for our district engineer and our district manager. I have the office now. These guys are floating out in the field between 9 counties, and they like to come to Tullahoma first. That would give them a place to set their computer, have monitors set up, and keep all the files and plans in this office. It would, greatly benefit us in our 9 counties. Also, it would be used for command center for strike force. It's a team that rapidly responds to emergency situations. So it would be set up as a mobile office trailer we could take down real quick and move out anywhere. Anywhere, Florida to North Carolina, South Carolina, and surrounding states.
And I'm assuming to any other work sites that they might be needed at also, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. And possibly Bonnaroo would be maybe the first time it's being used outside of Tullahoma.
The unit's 672 square feet. It's already 9 structures on the lot. They've got more than enough parking, and staff recommends approval of the site plan.
One question, just for information on it, how frequently do you anticipate there be moving away and back onto the site there?
Moving the trailer in and out?
Yeah.
It would probably be, what do you say, maybe once in,
Probably at least once a year, whenever the strike force does their annual training. Towards the end of the year, they mobilize and they'll go somewhere in the state and they'll perform over a week's worth of tasks just to help them stay up to speed on being able to set trailers up and move around. And then in the event of a hurricane or any other kind of emergency that FEMA might request our response to, we'll take and move it in.
Okay, what about utilities connected to the trailer while it's sitting there?
yes, sir.
What about the time it takes to disconnect, reconnect, that sort of thing? How mobile is it, is what I'm asking.
We're planning on setting it up where it is very mobile. We'll have a substation where it's just easily disconnected by an electrician. We have an emergency electrician on call. They have, 12 hours to respond. So that same electrician will install the trailer and they'll be able to come and disconnect for us so we can just pull right out.
And what kind of time frame is involved in doing that?
Being I'm not an electrician, I would say easy for me. Just make a phone call and maybe a few hours for him. But that's something we haven't got into yet. But we are going to request that he installs a substation that where he can easily disconnect. We can move the trailer out.
Chairman, I move to accept the motion to approve the substation, mobile substation.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second to approve the request for the mobile substation as printed, section 7.A.1, 6 through 17 pages. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. It is so moved. And that is, by the way, that's not a recommendation to the mayor and aldermen. That's something we can do ourselves, so. We actually can do something ourselves. Okay, next on the list will be a public hearing for a final plat for Max Christopher Proctor Road, minor subdivision, final plat, 323 on Flowertown Road. This is on 18 through 20.
Mr. Chairman.
Is it 25? Yeah, 25.
Yes, I just want to give a little background on this application. The property is in between Flowertown Road and North Jackson Street. A part of it used to be the right-of-way for Proctor Road, but Proctor Road was surplused to the applicant, Mr. Christopher, and is added into this with the lot. He had the lots that on both sides of it. Now that he's got this, he's already purchased it from the city and recorded the deed, I believe.
So it's all one piece of
Yeah,
property,
the
basically.
.08 piece of property that was once the street right-of-way is now his property. So everything that's being divided in this subdivision is on his property.
And your name and,
Chris Bateman, land surveyor on this property.
okay, and your address?
521 Woodsley Road, Tullahoma, Tennessee.
Anything you wish to comment before we?
The plat you got there was like the first draft. He brought the actual draft that's going to be recorded, and the lot dimensions haven't changed, just additional information on it as required by the subdivision regulations.
It looks pretty much like what we had.
Yeah, it just has the notations on it.
Okay.
Same layout, just additional.
This was the right of way that was.
Yeah, that was right away right
Given
there.
to him.
Yeah.
Okay. And since this is a public hearing, I'm going to open this up to the public at this time. Anybody wishing to speak to this issue may come to the podium. Thank you. And make their comments. You have 2 minutes to do so. If there are multiples, which I don't see any, but if there were, those could be designated to another speaker if necessary. So the public hearing will now be open and we can hear. Mr. Christopher, do you have anything you want to add to what's? I'm sorry, he's not. This is Mr. Proctor. I'm sorry, Mr. Proctor, you have anything? Who?
That's Mr. Bateman.
Bateman.
He's the surveyor.
Surveyor. Okay. I need to write down names.
I'll help you.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to add to what's already been said?
No, everything, I believe everything that got approved through the planning commission office is waiting approval from you guys.
Do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak? I don't believe we do. So therefore, we will close the public hearing. And we will entertain a motion on this request.
Move to approve the final plat for the property located here.
Second. Well, you have to cut you
That's
off.
all right.
That's
So
all right.
3.2 acres in Flowertown Road and Proctor Road,
Yeah.
South Jackson.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Does this constitute a flagged lot?
Its shape doesn't look like one by the way it's done, I don't think. I don't know though, because there's that angular portion in the bottom there, or,
Consider a reverse frontage lot. It'd be a lot, a two frontage lot, because it's got frontage on two roads. Flag lot would be if it only had one.
Yeah.
And it was that flag, that pole that would go up to it.
It's got a flag, it's got a flag pole, but it's not a flag lot.
Yeah, it's because of the road that
Yeah.
butts the rear.
any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and second to approve agenda item 7.D.1, the Max Christopher Proctor Road minor subdivision final plat, as amended by the drawing that was submitted,
The one that was passed around.
the one that was given to us.
Yeah, it was the third draft, so.
So, all those in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. It carries. And is that a recommendation to the?
No, that was the final.
That's a final done, okay. So that takes care of the public hearings.
Well, no, the other ones will be public hearings. as
Oh,
well, too.
oh, that's right, yeah, the text amendments are public hearings also. Okay, so the next thing up will be some subdivision text amendments, and we will vote on these. I spoke with Lee, we'll have to vote on these individually, one by one. We can't vote on them all as a one-piece group here in this. So I'm going to open the public hearing and allow Lee to come and give an explanation detailed before we begin. So the same rules apply to this public hearing as to the previous one.
It's a text amendment to the monument requirements of the subdivision regulation to make it in line with the state requirements. Benefit of this will be for surveyors that are not from this community that does work, so it'll be uniformed and it won't be any, there won't be any surprises to them when they mark the subdivisions as far as with the iron pins on the corners.
They're going from 5/8 to ½ inch.
Right, that's the state requirement. The surveying board's standards.
I hope we can get it down 18 inches with a rock around here. Lee, why did they change from metal to metal or plastic?
Well, right now it requires a metal cap. I'm recommending to allow them to do either plastic or metal. They use both in the field. They seem to be very durable. They can put the information that's required on a plastic one just like they can the metal one.
Because having worked in plastic, one of my problems with plastic has always been that sun degrades and rots plastic. So typically, sun can ruin plastic pretty easily. But if it's what's standard for the state, then any other questions? Any comments from there? If not, I'll close the public hearing on this one and entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion and second to approve this portion of the text amendment standard 7.C.1 in the agenda to number 1, sections 4-1.3 monuments. Any questions from the council? Hearing no questions from the council, all in favor of sending a favorable.
This is final here too.
We get to do everything tonight, okay?
Yeah, there's no rezonings on the.
All in favor of approving this text amendment to our subdivision regulations, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. I hear none, it carries. Now we'll open the public hearing on the second portion, which is on page 29. This will be on section 4-3.2 flag lots. And we'll open the public hearing. Lee, you want to give an explanation?
Yeah, the purpose of requiring the 50-foot strip of the flag lot is to leave enough room for a private road if the lots or the land behind the flag lot is going to be developed. But it seems to put a necessary hardship on smaller lots when they divide it. Even though both lots meet the minimum zoning requirements as far as lot size and lot width, once you require 50-foot strip there for the flagpole, so to speak, it takes up a lot of the property on the roadside lot. So the whole purpose is to give relief to the roadside lot on smaller size subdivisions.
Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on this and entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this amendment. Any comments, questions, or anything?
Can I ask the question from Lee of what exactly a flag lot is?
Absolutely.
It's a lot that's shaped like a flag. You've got the small access strip that comes up to the
Okay.
road, and it's only access.
And then it's got like a, yeah, okay.
And then, you've got the flag lot, then you got the roadside lot in front of it between, at the road.
Okay. Got it. So it
If you
looks
took
like,
off that- If you took off that back end right there.
Yeah.
And you just have like that, that's the flag.
okay. Got it. Thank you.
welcome.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this amendment to the subdivision text as in Agenda 7.C.2, Sections 4-3.2 flag lots. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. It carries. And the third and final one is for the access from arterial or collector streets. This is section 7.C.3, 32 to the end. I believe it's the end. Yeah. And it's to amend sections 4.3.3. I will open the public hearing. Lee, will you please make explanation?
Currently, the way the regulations is if anyone develops along a arterial or collector road, that they cannot derive access from it, from the lots that are, that was a little too broad and overreaching, I believe. So I'm asking for it to be, or we're recommending that it be removed to where it is on a basis, or the individual situation dictate that particular requirement instead of it just being a one-size-fit-all rule. And I think the best way of trying to look at these corridors, especially for arterial and collector roads, is by corridor study. So, the individual situations of each lot, each corridor, because they're different from corridor to corridor, would be better to do a study for each one and then come up with policies to address any issues, the access management or interconnectivity or aesthetics.
Do we have any,
It's good to ask a question.
is it as part of the public, or, because we're in public hearing right now, but can you ask it in our section? If you're comfortable?
Whenever it's appropriate.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Then I'll close the public hearing and ask your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lee, a question about access from arterial roads or collector roads. And I'll use a specific example. The development that's going on along Ovoca Road there at Emerald Acres, adjacent to Emerald Acres, it's on Ovoca Road. Is that relevant to this, where it says that the property is divided along an existing street? There shall not derive access directly from the street.
Right. Which subdivision are you speaking of again?
At the intersection of Ovoca Road and Riley Creek Road, the Ovoca Road side,
Yeah.
there are about 8 or 10 lots along there that have access to the street.
Right. That subdivision was Flint Rock. That was approved before the new subdivision regulations were adopted. That had the requirement of not allowing curb cuts along Collector Street.
We were a little late in making the change, weren't we?
Yes, sir. The main reason looking at this was because of Avoca and Riley Creek. Like looking at Emerald Meadows, for instance, those houses look very much like they're on top of the road there when you go by them on that particular section. I don't know if you've ever really looked at it compared to, especially a road with that much traffic on it, would, if it ever needed to be widened, would create a very heavy financial burden for the city and the taxpayers.
I look at it every day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I'll entertain a motion on it first,
And then we can go back to questions.
and then we'll go back
Okay.
to questions. Do I have a motion
Motion,
to?
approve.
To approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second to approve this subdivision text amendment to section 4.3.3, access from arterial collector streets. Now, questions?
Can I ask a question about, when you say corridor study, who does that fall on? Like, who does the onus fall on for that?
Well, that would be a city-initiated project. It would be much like doing any type of plan. I mean, we would do a study. We would probably get a consultant firm to do it that specializes in traffic engineering and transportation planning to do a study of the road and the existing land uses along the street, and then of course our policies about how we grant driveways, minimum lot sizes along these streets, and then of course come up with policies. All at the same time, during the plan, make it transparent and allow the landowners along the corridor to of course get their input as well as the general public.
Tell me if I read this right. The current standard says that when a property is divided along an existing street, so I've got a street and I've got a strip of land and I'm dividing these sections for housing. I cannot have a driveway going into that street from that house.
Right.
How are they supposed to get on a road
You can
then?
use a marginal access street to put in, that you could access the marginal access street and then you would access the main road from it. And that would keep people from backing into traffic and doing a lot of extra movements in the road, in the right of way, instead of doing it, on a marginal access street, which would be better. We require right now a turnaround driveway, but not everybody uses it for a turnaround driveway. Some of them use it for basketball courts. So they're still backing onto these roads and not into oncoming traffic, traffic they might not see because of either, it could be dark, they could be going excessively fast, and they're on top of them before they know it. So there's a lot of safety issues to take into consideration when you allow, a high density or a high number of curb cuts per a certain, distance.
Just want to make, because having lived on Cedar Lane for about 15 years, with the driveway that went right out onto Cedar Lane, I know how bad this kind of situation is.
Right.
Trying to get out of my driveway, back out of my driveway was dangerous as all get
But
out.
this amendment isn't going to take the ability of this commission to require that. It's just going to make it a situation where it's on a, if the situation, or if the project, if you guys feel that it needs it and that it is dangerous, or it's the best interest of the citizens, then definitely require it.
How would we deal though with the situations like where you've got a subdivision that runs parallel to, say, Avoca Road? It runs parallel to it, and there's a space of land there that's owned by somebody, and they're trying to subdivide that, and there's no room between that land and the existing subdivision to put a secondary road to get in. How will we deal with that?
It isn't mandated, it's just only if in a situation that it seems warranted to require it.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Well, the situation is that if someone owns property like that, the current standard solves the problem. current standard solves the problem. If we change it, we make it arbitrary and force it back to the planning commission to make a decision on each individual case. I think it's the best idea is to keep the standard as it is, and the problem is solved.
And don't we incur costs from doing a corridor story for the city too? Like, wouldn't that, like, what kind of, how much, do you know what I mean? Like, would that be something that could get expensive or no? I guess it's a question for Lee.
Well, I mean,
I see that being a developer's issue.
yeah, that would be there, they would need to take into consideration
They would
that
have to take it
cost of the regulation. The only reason we would require it is because of the safety standard that, you know,
So the onus would be for the developer to pay it, like, in terms of who would,
yes, ma'am.
Well, Lee, what about the case where there's not a marginal access street and there's not any real good way to put one in?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Well, I assume you could, if you thought it was a hardship, then they could apply for a variance and be granted a variance.
Well, yeah, and I thought that's what this was doing when I first read it, was allowing the planning commission to make exceptions to that where it was justified.
Right, well, the way it was written was to make, instead of making it a prescriptive, that it would be on a situational call for the planning commission. And of course, as staff, the development committee, we would, if it was something that was really dangerous, we would definitely make a recommendation that, they require, access to straight, directly to the road, that a marginal access street would be a better and more safe choice.
I was thinking of a lot that we allowed subdivision on just in the last year or so. It was on, I believe it was on Country Club Drive, but anyway, there was no, there's no place there for marginal access street. So they would, if they couldn't have access to Country Club Drive, there would be no access.
Right, and that would be one of those that you'd have to look at and say, was this a hardship? Are they going to be able to, are they not going to be able to develop this lot because of this requirement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but the way it's worded right now, it puts the onus on the commission to require them to have that the.
Right, and
it seems like to me it would be better the other way, to put the onus
on
the developer to request that.
Right, I mean, I can see your point on that. The whole purpose was not to make it mandated and make it on a.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, that it should be a way for a developer to get around that rule, because there are cases where I think it just would prohibit him from building on a lot. But I think the onus should be on the developer to request that. The rule should be as it is right now, and then they can request some exception to it.
So,
I can see your point. That would be a way of dealing with it to release the pressure.
so basically, if we left it the way it is, then we have to give variances, whereas the new wording, we give them a variance, but it's not called a variance.
Well, no, it's just the rules. It won't be required. They wouldn't need a variance. It just wouldn't be required unless the planning commission thought it was warranted.
The way it's worded right now, unless somebody on the planning commission stands up and says, hey, I don't believe they should be able to put a driveway onto that collector road, then they could go ahead and do it without any approval.
But we could, I mean, the onus would be that we could say to them, we don't think it's safe, but if you want to do a study and show that it is, prove to us that it is safe through a study, we put the responsibility on them for the study. Is that right, Lee?
Yeah, you can do that.
I don't think that's the way it is right now, though, in the wording.
No, it's not. In the wording, it's almost black and white. You just either can or can't.
Well, you can. I mean, it basically just reverses the rule that was made whenever it was. I don't remember when. And but it allows us to come along and require it if we deem necessary.
Okay, couple of questions. Was this change done when we did this change happened in July when we, or June when we updated?
Yeah, it changed in.
Because
In May.
May, prior to that, how did we do this? Because you said we missed the boat on that property on
There
Oboka.
wasn't any requirements.
There was no requirements. We made the requirement this, now we're looking to change the requirement.
Yeah, basically, we're reversing it, but we're allowing an exception to it.
Okay, I'm just trying, if there wasn't one, May, we made one. And then in this one now, we're looking to try to kind of revamp what we put in May.
We made it too strict and now we're trying to loosen it up a little bit.
It was to,
I think it was too strict because there are certain cases to where it would prohibit a builder from
Yeah,
building.
you
on
couldn't
piece
even
of
build a
property.
home there
Right.
because you can't have access to it.
Right.
we just couldn't divide a lot. I mean, if you can always put a house on a lot and get a driveway and curb cut on a vacant lot. But if you want to cut it up and then put new, more than one driveway on there, then that's where the rule kicks in.
This applies when you're subdividing a lot?
Right. If
It
it's
doesn't apply to the existing lot that's already now there?
Right. A vacant lot right now that exists right now, if they wanted to build and put a driveway on a collector arterial road, they can do so. It's just the dividing of the property is where the rule kicks in, where it becomes more than one driveway.
You understand that, Mr. Blanks?
Sure. And then they can get a
I'm not
variance,
sure I-
they can apply for a variance if they want, and the planning commission can either
I think
deny
I
it
understand it.
or can approve it, or the planning commission require them to provide for a marginal access street.
It gives us teeth if we need
Okay.
it.
Give the
If
planning
they want,
commission more.
if they want to come
instead of less.
and request a variance, they can. Right?
I think they can do that right now.
Right. They can do that already?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Why
can
are we
request
changing
it, they can
That's my
request
question.
variances.
Okay.
Well, it looks like we're changing it just to allow the planning commission a little bit more latitude in requiring something aside from simply getting a variance. In other words, to require a marginal access street or something like that if the property lends itself to that kind of habitation.
And we can justify, and the wording here allows us to justify that if they've done these kind of studies that Lee talks about.
That's right. It gives you all more latitude rather than restricts you more.
Okay. Okay. I think I understand it better now.
But I still think that a builder could come to say take the Avoca Road situation, could come to Lee, let's say that hadn't already been approved, come to Lee and say, hey, I've got this plan, I want to put all these driveways along Avoca Road. And Lee has the authority to say, okay, go ahead, because it meets the requirements.
I don't, you
No.
guys do.
We have the authority to say that.
Well,
If
but
it- if it's-
he's the one that first meets with the builder, a developer, and tells him what the rules are, and the rules are he can do it. If we go with it the way it's proposed to be modified here. Now, we could overrule him when it comes before us.
See, that's what well, our training told me anything, when we start getting into variances,
Yeah.
when we start getting into trouble.
Yeah.
This is eliminating variances and letting us, because it takes out the public works and it puts in the planning commission to say, if we're doing our job and we're looking and we have that question, when we see that subdivision, that's when we ask that question. What has been done? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, but the way it's worded, it's the reverse of that. It allows them to put the thing in there unless we take some action.
Well, that's it. We're just having to do our jobs to look to say, hey, I think this is a problem with this subdivision, so we need you to do further work.
Yeah.
It's putting the onus on us to actually do our jobs.
Right.
And making sure we're studying and making sure we feel comfortable with it. But that's eliminating the variances, which gets planning commissions in trouble.
Well, I agree with that. But my question, and I'm not hung up on it much either way, except that I think we need to decide if we want to put the onus on the builder to see that this is done properly, or we want to put the onus on the commission.
Once again, I like this because this gets the variances out of the picture. Because
Also,
when we
either way, it
put-
would.
when we put the onus on the builder, there has to be a variances. And the variances is where historically planning commissions get in trouble. That's what we've been told in the last 3 trainings I've had.
Yeah.
Like everybody, when we variance, that's when problems happen. Because it shows that we're picking and choosing.
And can be arbitrary and capricious.
Correct.
Yeah.
Where
And
this is saying, we have to make sure we're doing our homework and looking at this and looking at the arterial lines and saying, hey, this might be a heavy traffic, I don't like this, we need a study. And we have the text amendment to back us up instead of us being, was it arbitrary and capricious?
Well, and that, by being able to require that study to be done, then we create the material evidence we need to be able to back up whatever decision we make. And we all understand that we need that material evidence to support us. So, yeah, I think it's, now that I listen to all of the answers and questions, I think I understand, and I think it looks like it may help us. It's gonna force us to do a little more work, but yeah. Any other questions or comments or anything from anyone?
I just want to commend
Yes,
the earlier planning commission for fixing the problem. We've got it fixed. I don't see why we mess it up now.
I have a question, and it goes back again to the cost of a corridor study. Is it something that we would see if we requested one from a developer? Would it be something where they'd be like, whoa, homie, this is too expensive, I can't do that, or?
A corridor study would be issued by the city.
Okay.
Now, there are what you call traffic impact analysis or studies. Now, that would be something that would be the developer's responsibility, but they would be taking their project into consideration and an area of influence that would have to be defined, and of course, to see if there was any negative impacts by that development with the current condition of the area. So, but a corridor study would be like a land use / transportation study of a whole corridor that the city would normally take on, or the Department of Transportation, one of the two, and then it would go through a planning process of where you would have meetings and discuss the policies and land use patterns along that corridor.
And the city would pay for that
The
study?
city would do that, yes.
Okay.
and we could require either one of those, right?
No, not the corridor study, but traffic impact analysis you can. Because the only question you're really asking them is what's your impact of your development going to be in the area
All the
here?
other traffic that's going on at that point.
Certain intersections that are within a certain distance of the development, the traffic already going up and down the street, and peak hour traffic.
Any other questions or comments?
I think it honestly comes down to, I understand what you're saying, Ray, that we fixed the problem, but that's gonna create variances. This is going to eliminate variances.
Won't eliminate them.
No, yeah, it will, because you can't have that variance. We'll either determine it's good or it's not. The variance is when they submit one to us and they already have it, or we don't want it, and we say, okay, it's a variance, then that creates a variance.
They can always come back and ask for a variance.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna create a variance. This is right here, it does require us to do our work
Before you give them the variance.
before.
Well, it's,
That's the
But are we
problem.
no,
also?
it's not we give them a variance, we determine it either
Goes
is a
or no
problem
goes.
and they need to put in a marginal access street, or it's not a problem and we allow them access to the street. As opposed to being, we're granting a variance for this individual piece of property. So it is different. And it does take the variance out, but it gives us some material evidence too.
It's the planning commission that gives themselves the variance, to give
Yeah.
the person the opportunity to do it. You're giving yourself a variance. Anyway, I understand exactly what's happening, and I don't like it.
Okay.
I certainly like the fix that you made. I commend you for it.
If you have more questions.
I just had one other question. So it goes back again to money. Is it going to be something where it is like if we do these corridor studies over and over again, if we're like not doing a good job at our job, say, and we're like, oh no, we don't think this is great, and it might be fine for them to pull out right on the street, and we say no, we need a corridor study for you. Is that going to impact your budget? Are we supposed to care about that?
I want to use the right terminology. I mean, corridor study, that's something that the city would do. They would do a traffic impact study. That's something we could require, and probably would be required if you're going to make them put in a margin of access street.
Okay.
And they would have to bear the cost of the study, the developer.
The developers.
So we can't order a corridor study.
Got it.
Only the city can do that.
Only the city can do that, and that's up to them.
Yeah.
So
Well, no,
anything
they-
we're doing here is not going to.
The city, that would be a city project. So
Okay.
just think of it as like a city
Separate.
project, the corridor study. It wouldn't be on a development basis.
Okay.
that we would-
Yeah, ours would be traffic impact studies.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we're
Clear on that.
Finances.
I understand.
okay.
I understand.
And those are a lot cheaper than corridor studies.
Yeah.
Traffic impact.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Then I'll proceed to call the question. This is a motion and second to approve agenda item 7.C.3, amending section 4-3.3 access from arterial collector streets. All those in favor of approving this as printed, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
And the ayes have it. The change carries. Okay, we have one other thing to come before us tonight. This is a request. We have a request from the Parkview Senior Living Facility Group looking to develop this, and they are requesting a special called meeting. They originally had asked for it on the 25th, which is only a week from now, and I did not agree to that. I wanted to bring this before you. I don't have a problem with having a special called meeting, but I wanted to bring it to all of you to know that we can make sure that as many people as possible, so we can have a quorum, would be available. So, the 25th is definitely not good for me, but that doesn't.
Well, the 25th,
Oh, we don't need timeframes for.
yeah, the
that's right, for
25th,
publishing.
they still got to do their second reading on the text amendment for that development. So I guess they're just trying to,
And when is that gonna happen?
next Monday.
The 25th?
Yeah.
Okay, so sometime after the 25th, can we all look at our calendars and see if there is a Monday after that when we might all be,
Well, you've got two members that have like three meetings in a row.
I know, and that's why I say,
We're buying them 2 weeks otherwise? Is that
Yeah.
right?
I
yeah.
think it's the 18th.
Yes, 18th.
What's the hurry?
Yeah, they just requested it. I sent the request in. I told them it was up to you guys.
I don't need any more meetings. I mean, I can't even make this meeting.
It's also spring
Okay.
break. Right.
So, the request for a call meeting, we will take this up at our next monthly meeting.
There won't be a special call meeting.
No,
Okay.
there will not be a special call meeting. We will take it up at the next monthly
Okay.
meeting, which will be
The 18th.
March the 18th.
March the 18th.
Does that need to be voted on or anything?
No, that's not. All right,
I'm glad
with that taken care of, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Come on.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
What was this other mess? Anything?
Nothing.